Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like there's got to be something. We're kind of like we're just holding on for so long. There's got to be something huge he's holding on to.
All right. How's it going, everyone? We are back with episode 8 of the Sanabul Fight Buzz podcast. Episode 8. It seems like we've done more than that.
Yeah, it feels like there's been quite a few, but yeah, 8's a good number.
Yeah. All right. It's been a while since we uploaded. I mean, the last time, because there was a week in between with no fight on the weekend, but this one we're coming off of the Imavov and Dolidze card, which was actually not too bad. We're going to talk about just a couple fights on it, but I mean, to start it off, I just wanted to give like a little shout out to Randy Brown. That knockout was insane. It was perfect.
Yeah, it was really clean. I hate like the way he kind of shifts it off to the side with the one, the double up and then the two. That was really clean, and he called it out to his corner.
Did he?
I see it. Yeah. Like his corner called for. I don't know what they called for, but you could hear him say, "I see it," and then within 10 seconds he lands the combo.
Yeah,
knocks him out.
It was clean. And it also just like speaks to like sticking to the fundamentals too, because that was just a 1-1-2 and then full extension of that cross just right through the target. It was picture perfect.
Yeah, his movement's really cool too, right? Like unorthodox. He bounced around a lot, really weird. I love fighters like that who are just untraditional.
Yeah, me too. And then moving up, we're gonna go over the co-main event too, but Drew Dober and Renato Moicano. So before this fight, we were talking about how we thought it was going to be a finish, and it didn't go that way.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, it's a dominant performance, though. I mean, it wasn't a finish, which we would have wanted to see, but yeah. Wow, did he ever dominate Drew? Really great grappling on his part.
Yeah, I thought going into the third, it was 1-1. And then in the third, I thought that Moicano, like Dober had the start of the third and then Moicano had the end. So I actually thought it was like a little bit even. I didn't think it was like crazy domination, but like I thought Drew Dober honestly had a pretty impressive performance. Like for the circumstance, he was a lot smaller than Moicano.
Yeah, it was. It's kind of surprising, and you hear Moicano's post-fight speech, and I was like, what is this guy going on about? Yeah. And he talked about how he used to be undersized, and he looked at Drew Dober as being this, big guy, and then his top pressure was crazy, man. Like, Drew was really struggling. I mean, he had his moments, but he was really struggling to get it from underneath him, get anything going on.
Yeah, and I mean, it seemed like it was a grappler-striker matchup going into it a little bit, just because Moicano had all those finishes from submissions, and then Dober had all those finishes from knockouts, but we saw Moicano in the first round. He shot that takedown, and Drew had those hard hips, and he stuffed it the first time, and then Moicano right away reshot and got him down, and then the whole first round he had that pressure on top. So yeah, it was a really impressive performance from Moicano in the grappling department for sure.
Yeah, and it was cool when Drew had that lateral drop in the second. Like, it just goes to show you how athletic and explosive Drew Dober is. Like, he really is an athlete, man. Even in his striking, he just looks powerful.
Yeah, that lateral drop was super impressive. I was thinking about talking about it and then I forgot, but it was awesome how he just used his momentum just to throw him. Like, they're both so good, and at the top of all these divisions, it's just like everyone's so skilled.
Yeah, absolutely. And then he tried it in the third. You could tell it wasn't the right timing, and Moicano was ready for it, right? Couldn't get it to go. But
he got excited. Moving on, the main event, we had Roman Dolidze against Nasruddin Imavov. Yeah, I mean, I'm super impressed from Nasruddin Imavov. Like, he is really, really good. And the fact that he went all 5 with Strickland too, and they were striking, I think he's going to be dangerous moving forward.
Yeah, honestly, I remember watching one of his fights a few fights ago, and I remember being so impressed by his striking and like really thinking like, wow, this guy's super entertaining to watch and very clean. And yeah, I thought he had a really good performance on the weekend. There's definitely big things ahead for him. He's really clean, really crisp. Like, I thought he did a really good job of creating the space that he needed to get it going against Dolidze. But Dolidze did a great job of pressuring with the clinch and things like that. He just didn't do enough, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, Imavov is such a he honestly, he reminds me a little bit of Alex Pereira, where he is a little, it seems like he's a little smooth. Like, he obviously strikes differently than Alex, but he's so confident in his range, and he just has his hands like down at his hips when he doesn't need them up, and he's so calm, which is almost like the opposite of Dolidze. Like, Dolidze seemed like he was in war the whole time he was in there, and then Imavov seemed like he wasn't even breathing at all in between rounds the whole fight.
Yeah, Dolidze definitely seems like more like a grinder, like a guy who's gonna get it done through, like, just coming at you and going to war with you. Like, it's not gonna be this, probably not gonna be like this super crisp, clean combination. Whereas I feel like Imavov's more likely to do something really masterful like that. But how about that drama with Chris Curtis? Yeah,
Yeah, that was wild. And Imavov seemed really, really mad. He probably wants that fight back. I mean, obviously.
It's a great way to set it up. I mean, it was an unfortunate way that it went down the first time, and I would love to see them go at it again too. Chris Curtis is really growing on me a lot. Hearing him in people's corners, hearing him on like podcasts and things like that, like he's really grown on me.
Yeah, me too. I just think that Imavov is a little further ahead in his road to the title than Chris Curtis is at this point.
That's fair. So where do you think that puts Imavov next?
I was looking at the next fights, and there's nothing. There's no room for him right now because everyone's booked. Like, Victoria's booked against Brendan Allen. I mean, the only people that really aren't booked are Duplessis and Izzy. Like, Whitaker's fighting Costa. Hermansson's fighting Pfeiffer. Oh yeah, Cannonier. I don't know if Cannonier's booked. I don't think he's booked.
I don't think so. I feel like that
would make sense. Wow, that's a scrap.
Yeah, I feel like that's where they'll go with it next. It's a good idea.
Could be
a great one
too. Rematch.
Yeah. I wonder with Strickland though. I just feel like Strickland has come into this like cool new star power, where I could see like an interesting fight for Strickland next. It could be involved again, but he did kind of
rematch.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's true. That would be one I think a lot of people would tune into. I just feel like he kind of decidedly beat Imavov. Like, unfortunately, it was kind of a tough one in 5 rounds. Drug him in deep water. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, the beef was pretty crazy. Like, obviously, it was like the same thing where he had his hand touching the ground technically, but it was like just touching a little bit. And I think Imavov knew that he was doing it when he did it. I guess he like looked around and saw that it was touching and then did it anyway. But yeah, it was like a kick to the head.
Yeah, that was a weird one. It did seem really deliberate. I'm curious to see what they're gonna do with that rule, because obviously it's becoming a bigger factor in fights.
Yeah, we saw, I think someone, maybe the commissioner, one of the commissioners or something, said that they were going to change it because it's just like a little crazy. Moving forward, we have the UFC Hermansson versus Pfeiffer next weekend. We're going to talk about 3 fights on this card. We have one of the first ones we're going to talk about is Brad Tavares and RoboCop Gregory Rodriguez. We can just go over this one quickly, but I think it's a really fun fight. I think both these guys are pretty seasoned in their careers. RoboCop has that power where he can just finish you at any time, and then Tavares is just a dog, and he's going to stay in there. So,
yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. Is Rodriguez a Killcliff guy? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. That'll be interesting. That's going to be a good fight for sure. That's also middleweight?
Yep, middleweight.
Yeah, I find it funny how the UFC kind of tends to like do like a few events where they not focus, but like they stack up a whole bunch of fights in like one weight class, and they kind of move, like there'll be a one card with like 4 fights and bantamweight, and then it'll go up and it'll be a middleweight. It's always interesting to see that.
Yeah, it probably makes it a little easier on matchmaking moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. And it kind of, I feel like it helps us as fans to like get to know the divisions better when that kind of thing happens.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, the main event of this one is middleweight too. But before that, the co-main actually might be more exciting to me than the main event. I love Andre Fili. He's super exciting to watch. It's going to be Dan Ige against Andre Fili. And I was looking at Andre Fili's resume, and it is like underestimated how many good guys he's fought. He's fought Max Holloway, Yair Rodriguez, Bryce Mitchell, Calvin Kattar, Charles Jourdain, Michael Johnson, and then obviously Artem Lobov, which is super important to throw in there as well.
Yeah, you got to get Artem on there. Absolutely. Yeah, he's had some really, he's a vet and like a like, I guess he's, 33, 34, something like that. And so he's not, like, he's probably right in his prime. He's an interesting guy. He's a really interesting guy to watch. Like, that Almeida fight, like, he was doing all sorts of, we started off with his capoeira, weird stuff, and then really, really crisp striker as well. I think that's going to be a couple of vets going at it with him and Dan Ige.
Yeah, he's super creative, and both these guys have like kind of recent losses to Bryce Mitchell, but Dan Ige is a vet. He's actually the favorite in this one, which is a little surprising to me because like his last, I don't know, however many fights that weren't that standout to me, but Andre Fili has been pretty good recently, and I don't really know. I think I would probably go with Fili in this one. I wouldn't put him as underdog necessarily.
I agree. That shot that he landed in his last fight against Almeida, that was probably like, I don't know what it is with some of these featherweights, man. Like Josh Emmett with that shot on Bryce Mitchell, and then that, like, this one that he landed on him, like, that is about as hard as you can hit a guy in the face. Like, that right hand he landed, like, that was nasty. That's a nasty knockout. So obviously he's got a lot of power. So I'm kind of putting it on him too. I think it's gonna be him.
Yeah, I think the featherweight and bantamweight divisions, but even probably featherweight, is like just the perfect mix of weight and power mixed with speed and like technique because of how crisp they are. So I think that one's just a good one to watch for those finishes. And then obviously moving up, you get mostly just the power, and then moving down, you get mostly just like the technique and the speed. But I think that's a happy medium there in the featherweight division, which is super fun to watch. Sweet. And then for the main event, we had Joe Pyfer and Jack Hermanson. We have Jack Hermanson as the underdog in this one, which kind of makes sense. Joe Pyfer's been on quite a tear in the UFC.
Yeah, Joe Pyfer is a specimen, man. He is a specimen. His, like, just like his strength in his hands and like even his body, it's just crazy, man. Like, when he hits, you can see it hurts.
Yeah, and I think he's like right up there with prospects with Bo Nichols. Sorry, like I think both these guys stand out to me in quite similar ways about how they're just like completely dedicated to the game, and they're just forces that can't be stopped at this point. I think like this would be a good fight to set up if he gets this one done against Bo Nichols at some point. I think that'd be a fun fight to watch.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I could see that. I would love to see that, actually, just to give that test to both guys.
Yeah, and then Imavov against Nicol, if Nicol wins his next fight too. Like, this middleweight division's honestly probably one of the most fun divisions in the sport right now.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there. There is a lot of hype surrounding Bo Nichols, and I am kind of curious to see how this next fight goes, because the guy, like, he performed well in his last fight, but I just want to see, some of these prospects, like, yes, you want them to be patient to build their star power, but sometimes I just want them to be tested, like, right away. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
I'm ready to see him against, a guy in the top 15. Like, let's go.
Yeah, like seeing Sean go from ranked 13th to fighting Peter Yan, like, kind of want to see something like that.
Exactly. Like, but at the same time, you don't want to get into a situation like Darren Till where you feel like maybe they test him too early.
Yeah. Oh, I miss Darren Till. All right, we got some little topics to go over before we round this one up, but we have I wanted to talk about Roadhouse with you. I don't know, did you see the trailer for that?
Man, I am so excited. I have not been this excited for a movie in years, dude.
Yeah, it's coming out pretty soon, like in a month on Amazon Prime or something, and it's going to be online. I'd kind of like to go to the theaters for it. Is it going to be out in theaters, do you know?
I don't know. I'm assuming it's going to go right to streaming platform, but I've seen so many funny memes, man. Like, so many funny memes about Conor in this thing. It's like, they didn't even have to have him act. They just had a camera crew following him around in bars.
Yeah, I saw that one too. That's so true. Conor just playing himself.
I saw the one. It was the point of view of him throwing a punch at Jake Gyllenhaal. Like, it was just his fist coming at the camera, and it's like, POV, you're an old man in a bar in 2018, whatever.
But yeah, I mean, Conor actually looks pretty good at it. Like, he looks like he's a good actor.
Yeah, I remember when he was doing a bunch of those, like, I don't know, he still does it, but he would get on Twitter and do the voice notes.
Yeah.
And he was doing like his American accent for when he was filming it. It was so funny, but I'm super pumped. I mean, I remember watching the event when Jake Gyllenhaal came out and did the whole flying knee. Like, I thought that was actually really cool. I think it's awesome they actually did it at a live event, and they didn't just film it in some studio. But yeah, I'm super excited for that, man. It's great for the UFC. Like, this, what a big movie to have.
100%.
like talking about mixed martial arts like that. And I love the original Roadhouse of Swayze, so I'm fired up.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I'm obviously a huge Conor fan, so I'm pumped. He looks jacked in this. He looks jacked in the trailer.
He looks so big, man. I'm so fired up.
Yeah, next thing we wanted to talk about was the BMF belt, and not specifically like the Gaethje and Holloway fight, but just what it means in general, and then kind of what happens if they unify it with the real belt. So I mean, like, what are your first thoughts on that?
Yeah, so this is something I've kind of thought about. Like, I get the idea of the belt and I understand what they're going for, but like we talked about, my whole concern is that, like, okay, let's just say theoretically Justin Gaethje wins or Max Holloway wins, and then they go, because Gaethje's been a contender, he gets the next shot at Islam. Let's just say, even if whatever happens, let's just say that's how it works out. Do they both put their belts up, and then what? So if Islam wins that, does he now carry two? And then you can never actually have that, because any time that the title, like whoever wins the title, they would just carry both belts at all times. So it really can't. You almost can't have it up for grabs at the same time as the title. Otherwise, it just becomes two titles in one spot.
Well, when Jorge had it, he fought Usman, and he didn't put the BMF belt up for grabs,
which is weird too, right? Because then if you lose, it's like, well, Usman beats him, and it's like, well, I'm the BMF. Like,
yeah, I guess it's just like the UFC gets to decide who the BMFs are. So I think, like, in it, let's just say, for example, like, you're fighting a really good grappler who's like the majority of like the population wouldn't decide as like a BMF when it comes to like say Nate Diaz was fighting for the BMF belt, like that. He wasn't at the top. He wasn't like going to be out grappling everybody, but he was fighting for the BMF belt because that's what they considered him as. So I think like the UFC kind of just gets to decide who's deserving of the BMF belt. But you're right. Like it doesn't have very many guidelines around it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another question is, like, is every fight that Gaethje has now, let's say he wins against Holloway, but then he doesn't get the title shot, is his next fight for the BMF? Or is it one of those things where they're just going to keep choosing, like, if it's a guy who is a badass?
Yeah. Why did Gaethje get this shot? Who had it before him? George, and he gave it up?
Yeah, he retired, and then they just said, hey, let's go Gaethje Dustin Poirier, which is a great matchup for the belt.
For sure.
From there. But
yeah, I don't know how it works. I guess because with George, he kind of just got to carry it forever until the UFC said they wanted to put it up for grabs again. So
it is interesting.
I guess that's how it works. And the other thing is, like, it's only in one division. What if John Jones wants to fight for the BMF belt? He can't. He plays Justin Gaethje for it.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to think of other guys that would like, but don't get me wrong. John Jones is a bad mamma jamma. I don't know if he constitutes what you're looking for in the BMF. You know what I mean?
Yeah, as like in fight style, you mean?
Yeah, like a guy who's just going to war.
So many
with
guys.
his head down. No,
like Hamzat, but he's like welterweight. It's kind of close.
I know, right? It's kind of a tough one.
Well, like, I guess Dricus would probably be a BMF at this point.
I say Sean Strickland.
Yeah, Sean Strickland.
Yeah, you know what I mean. You put him in there, and as the BMF.
Yeah,
like if him and Hamzat ever fought, it'd be like, yeah, you could see that being the BMF for
sure. For sure, yeah. Sean Strickland does kind of personify the BMF belt.
Exactly. I don't know. It's just a tough one. I get it's all for fun, but I'm also curious: is there pay-per-view points associated with whoever's holding it?
I don't know. Probably.
Like, I wonder if Gaethje gets like a higher cut.
No idea, but we'll probably find out once someone gets it again. All right, sweet. Next thing we want to talk about was kind of just like we could just each make a guess on who we think the main event for UFC 300 is going to be. I'll let you go first, just in case we have the same one.
I feel like I'm hearing a lot about Tom and Alex, but it just doesn't seem practical to me. It just doesn't seem practical. It just seems like there's too big of a weight discrepancy. But I think that could be it.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I also think Alex is going to be involved in that. I just don't think it's going to be against Tom. I think it'll probably be against Izzy at middleweight.
Or middleweight.
Yeah. No, light heavyweight. Sorry.
205, yeah.
Yeah, 205.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So, because it's a good question, does Izzy, because of his long tenure as the champion, deserve a title shot at 205, coming off a loss to Strickland a year ago?
I think so because of the story, and it's not necessarily about like deserving at this point.
Just
Like in the UFC, like
match.
yeah, it seems like it.
I could see that. Absolutely, I could see that.
Yeah,
Do you think they could surprise us with Conor and Chandler?
they could. But someone asked Dana if Conor was still fighting in what, June or in June, and he said no.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
They keep pushing Conor back. Like, wasn't it last June that they were saying the same thing?
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like there's got to be something. We're kind of like we're just holding on for so long. There's got to be something huge he's holding on to. I think Izzy's probably the only real option, the only guy who's like that big star outside of Conor. Because if Conor's out, then it's got to be something to do with Israel.
Yeah, and if Conor's out, it just feels like it doesn't do justice to UFC 300 for some reason.
Yeah.
Everyone was just waiting for Conor.
Yeah, it's true. It's tough though, because if you look at like Conor's fight with like Cowboy, like that card was not stacked at all. And the fact that they can just ride off of Conor being an absolute cash cow. So they're probably like, we can put him on 301, 302 if we want to. It doesn't make a difference. Then we'll have, 4 cards that are going to blow out of the waters.
Yeah, 100%. And the last thing we're going to talk about is Ilia saying he's going to smoke Volkanovski. That fight's next weekend, not this weekend. Ilia Topuria against Alex Volkanovski. We can just give our general thoughts on this one and then wrap it up. But I think, yeah, he's really confident.
Yeah, I see like 100% he has to be confident, and I think all these guys are super confident themselves. Like, you'd be surprised if they weren't.
Yeah.
And I am a little worried with Volkanov, the knockout loss. Like, that's scary to me. I hope it's not like, the beginning to something new. But at the same time, I look back when he was going to fight Yair, and everyone was like, Yair's, something he's never seen before. He's never dealt with this level of, creative striking, and, Volk managed to solve that puzzle. So
yeah.
I have a hard time betting against Volkanovski. That's the only thing.
Yeah, I think I am pretty confident Ilya's going to have an easy time in this one for some reason. I think that Ilia reminds me, out of everyone in the UFC right now, he reminds me of like Conor at the start of his career. And like when he knocked out Aldo, like that's what it feels like his confidence is at. Like even Sean, like I feel like Ilia just like has almost like a God complex about himself where he's like, I am the absolute best and nobody can touch me. And then Sean's a little more realistic with it where he's like, hey, I have to do all these things to make sure that I'm in the right place. And but Ilia just seems like he knows 100% that he's not going to get touched. And I think that's like what helped Conor at the start of his career, just with that confidence in himself.